For this session, we have Poorani Jeyaseker. She is going to talk about Dr. Deming and the wonderful world of information technology.
Hi, everyone. My name is Poorani Jeyaseker, and I'll be talking about the role of Dr. Edwards Deming in today's IT. As you guys all know, IT has become an important part of our life. Our cell phone can attest to that. We don't walk anywhere without our cell phones, right? And as I'm also going to say that it also has become an integral part of business operations today. So when you're running business operations, if you don't have an IT, irrespective of your business site, you're not going to succeed in it. So the IT environment, this is how IT teams work today with the business teams. The business thinks they know what they want from IT, and the IT thinks they understand what the business needs. But as you guys can see on the cartoon, it looks like the airplane. The business is trying to shoot airplanes into the trash can, but never hits it. So they always seem to be missing the requirements, what the business needs and the IT need. So my talk today is going to be about an IT software development project and how fear influences IT software development project, even though they use methodologies like Agile. And I'm going to talk more about that methodology in a second. So IT software development has two types of methodologies. One is the Waterfall methodology, and the other one is the Agile methodology. In the Waterfall methodology, the business team goes to the IT teams and tells them that, hey, IT, we need these reports, or we need this set of features, can you go do it? And then the IT team goes in a vacuum. They go for a few weeks, sometimes for a few months or a few years. They go develop the software. They come back, and then they release the software. The business does not have any say in any changes until they see the software, right? So when they see the software and they find that they don't see what they have, then they call the IT guys and say, this is not what we asked for. This is completely different from what we asked for. Then the IT says, well, you have to wait for another few months because I need to go back and then start redeveloping again and do another release. So this approach is not very value-driven. It's a lot of wasted effort, and it's very rigid. So the IT industry came up with another methodology called the Agile methodology that you guys see on the top. And the Agile methodology is more of an iterative approach. It's taken after Dr. Schuhart's PDCA cycle. And in this Agile methodology, they use what they call a sprint, which is probably 2 to 3 weeks, depending upon the size of the organization and the team. So the business team goes and asks the IT team about, gives them their requirements. The IT team prioritizes those requirements based on the business impact and value. And then they kind of show the software in 2 weeks time period. Then the business kind of gives them feedback. They take that feedback, and then they can go about it. But most of the time, even though we have Agile methodology, we still don't deliver projects on time, and we still don't deliver value-added effort. And that's what my case study is about in my paper. It's about work estimation. So the way it works in IT industries or IT organization today is the business goes to the IT and says, hey, IT, we need something. Can you give us an estimate so we can figure out if we have the budget to do it or not? And the IT goes ahead, looks at all the processes, evaluates how much of time they need, and then they come back and then they tell them this is how much it's going to take. And then the business decides whether they're going to fund the effort or not. So the business is rewarded based on getting high quality software in lesser amount of time with lesser amount of money. And the IT is rewarded based on larger the scope of work effort, larger the profits that they get. And in this case, it's an Agile team. I worked on a project where the business team wanted sales data analytics. They wanted to connect customer information with product information to get to new markets. They were selling insurance. So the business team went to the IT team, and this is how an Agile team is constructed over here. You have a product owner who's responsible for all the business. You have the business analyst who understands all the business processes, and it gets communicated to the IT. Then you have the Scrum Master, who's responsible for removing all the constraints and blockers and make sure that things go well. And then you have a development team with software and developers who develop and test the software. So in this case, when the business went and asked an IT team for an estimate, the IT team, the business analyst team started doing business analysis. They started looking at all the projects and the processes, what are the constraints that they face, and then they went to the development team and showed what they had. The development team decided to give a work estimate, and they had received message that they had to increase velocity. And in IT, increasing velocity is usually measured, like Jim Benson mentioned today, that it's invisible time divided by arbitrary hours. That's what velocity really means. So they said, if we are going to increase velocity, we have to give a higher estimate. So originally, they estimated the work effort for 3 months, but they padded the work effort to be 9 months to make sure that they can cover all the special causes and common causes that is going to happen during the project time period. Because usually the business says, we want A, and then after like a few weeks they said, no, we don't want A, we want B, and then they come back and say, actually, you know what, we want C, you guys can do this. So they decided to make sure that they got all of those factors in during the time period, and then they gave an estimate of 9 months. What do you guys think the business said when they heard it's going to take 9 months to kind of produce like 10 to 15 reports? They said, no, we can't wait. Who do you think you guys are? Our sales agents are never going to wait 9 months to get like a few reports to identify which markets to go into. Just do whatever you can within 3 months. That's more than enough for us. But the development team came back and said, but in 3 months, the features that we're going to give you, that is not of any business value. We won't even complete the foundation work. But the business team, like, that's all the budget that we have. So now let's look into why did the IT team pad the estimate, and why did the business team reduce the scope of the estimate, right? So the IT team, and I don't know how many of you guys have IT, work in IT organization today, but this is what happens in our IT organization today. When we give estimates, then the business team treats them like deadlines, right? So when the IT team decided to give an estimate, they treat them like deadline. Originally, the development team used to give the right estimate, and you know what happened when they gave the right estimate? They were never able to meet the deadline. So when they were not able to meet the deadline, the business team went back to the IT management team, and they kind of told, hey, you know what? You always keep changing your estimates. But the development team said, but you always keep changing your requirements. Well, that's how we roll. Can't you guys just make changes? Don't you have all the technology to make the changes quickly? They're like, no, we still have to do the actual work. So they always got into this battle. So the IT management stepped in and said, you know what, let's put an end to it. We are going to set a variable limit of plus or minus 10%. So when you give an estimate, you cannot vary between plus or minus 10%, and you have to stick with it. And if you do, it's going to impact your performance. So the development team was like, okay, our hands are tied now. And moreover, we have to, whatever date that we put out there, we have to meet those dates, right? So let's think about this. So the IT management wants larger scope, because larger scope means larger profits for our organization and larger incentives for us. The business team always wants us to meet the estimate, which they consider as deadline. They never want us to miss the date. And as a developer, if I readjust the estimate and if it goes more than plus or minus 10% as I dive deeper into the project, I'm going to get punished, and I want a higher rating. So let's just pad the estimate. So that's the thought process that they had. They were not looking at things systemically. The business team, on the other hand, this is how IT and businesses function today. They all work in silos. So you have a silo of a business team, and you have a specific silo for the IT department, and the customer is completely independent of business and IT. And the business team is measured by having high quality software with lesser time and lesser money. So their goal is to kind of squeeze their IT partners as much as they can to get the maximum amount of work done in the minimum amount of time. That's how they are rewarded. Whereas the IT department gets rewarded, as I said, they have to have larger work effort and they get paid larger amount of money when they actually do longer time of effort. So they want to extend the work as much as they can, where the business wants to reduce the work as much as they want. So they all operate in silos, and they're all only concerned about their aim and what they want to do, and they really don't care about their IT partners, and the IT at the same time only cares about what they want to do. So it's like they all are working for their own goal, but they're not interconnecting, or they don't understand how interdependent they are with each other. So what happened in this project is, this is the interesting piece. Even though the IT department uses Agile methodology, and Agile methodology is supposed to promote more open communication, collaboration, build trust with the business partners, clearly in this case that never happened. The IT development team, because they were constantly padding estimate, they were losing a lot of work that was coming in. So they lost 16 developers within 6 months time frame. The team's morale was really low. Everybody was very unhappy. It was like walking on eggshells when you're working on this project because there was so much of stress. People really didn't know whether they would have a job tomorrow when they walk in because they didn't know what the business would do. They would ask for something and then we said, no, we actually don't need that. We don't really have the budget for that. And the IT management team, even though they wanted larger scope of work so they can make larger profits, they lost their business with their business customers because the business really didn't trust them. They lost talented resources. When new projects came in, they really couldn't ramp up the projects fast enough, so they never delivered on time, and there was a lot of defects in the software that they released, and they completely lost credibility with the business. And the business team, on the other hand, they met their budget numbers, they met their goals, they met their targets, but they always got non-value added work or things that were completely irrelevant or useless to the organization. And they started losing customers. So as you can see, this is what happens when you have fear. The IT department had fear of telling the truth or asking good questions why they needed or understand the importance of what the business team did. The business department is afraid to even have a conversation with IT to understand why they're having such a high estimate or what are the factors they are taking into consideration. They're all working in silos and they're not looking at organization as a system. This is why we need SOPK in IT organization today, especially in this information age. Especially in this information age where we need to work together, and IT has become such a strategic part of running an organization, SOPK plays a very important role. The IT department needs to understand what is their business, who are their suppliers, what inputs are they receiving, what is the process that they're going through, what outputs are they getting, who are their customers. Are the customers someone who's paying the money or who's giving them enough, who's just making sure that they get to their budgets and they're able to make incentives? Are the customers the real end users who are actually using the software? They need to start viewing organization as a system and not as this functional silos. They need to step out of their silos to understand how interconnected and interdependent they are with each other. They need to understand what variation means in IT. We have so many technology changes that are happening so quickly, so variation is a part of life. So you need to understand that variation is going to be very common in IT, and there's common cost variation and there's special cost variation. One of the common cost variation that you see in IT is business is constantly changing requirements. They need to start learning control charts to understand what kind of variations they are facing when they're working on a project. For example, this project team, if they had used control charts to understand how many times the business was changing their requirements, they would have had some data to go talk back to the business and say, why are you guys changing that? What is going on in your world? What are you not telling me and what are you telling me? Please tell us so that we can help and we can work together. Start doing PDSAs. They need to start examine, do we know what we know is really so? they cannot, sometimes IT departments are working in a more traditional managed organization, and they don't know, they can't do a lot, but they are trying with agile and lean software methods. They could probably start using PDSA, and in my paper I've talked about an infrastructure project where we moved data center from one state to another within a period of 6 months, and how we use PDSAs to actually do that. And finally, stop using performance appraisals and using rewards and incentives to motivate people, especially when you're using methods like agile and lean software development. Because the message that we are telling people that you have to work collaboratively, you have to build trust, but you're actually measuring them on individual performance and individual contribution. There's still this rock star mentality among the developers that if I can fix any defect that I can't, you are the rock star. So they are not able to share the knowledge that they want, or if they're sharing knowledge and trying to empower the team, then they consider a low performer or underperformer. So if you are an IT person today, go to the Gemba, go understand what your organization is doing. What is the purpose of the business? What is the purpose of your organization's business? What value can you add as an IT organization to the business? If you are a business person, go explain to your IT department what does your organization really do? How can they help you to achieve that strategic advantage? Using SOPK, we can eliminate fear in IT, and we can also set up a great foundation for methodologies like agile and lean software development. Without those things, we cannot really survive. Thank you. Yes.
So I have a question. I understand the concept. If you can impart SOPK into the IT department, you can have some advantages. But how does that, what happens if the rest of the company is not using SOPK and you have those other silos who are still pushing down into the IT department? Is it a mechanism to say, okay, I'm going to impact my sphere of influence and hopefully that'll
Yes.
influence the greater organization?
Yep. That's exactly right. Because right now, the IT departments have a higher sphere of influence compared to what they had like 5 years ago because of all the technology changes that is going on. IT is getting a table in the C-suite. So if they can start using SOPK and they can prove that they can get more productivity and higher quality because it's a tangible experiment that they can show and share with the business teams are willing to try. When we did the PDSA experiment, the business team was very impressed, and they asked us, how did you guys get to deliver this with such a short time, which we have never done this before, and never happened? Yes?
What are the details of the PDSA experiment?
We were moving a data center from one state to another. So when you're moving data center, you move like 60 to 80 servers from one location to the other, and you have a lot of application dependencies. And all these applications are facing end customers. So you have to plan accordingly, and the engineers who were trying to move the data center from one place to the other, they were not really sure when they could really do it. They wanted to make sure they addressed all the scenarios, because if there's an outage, they would be held responsible and they would be losing considerable amount of business. So using the PDCA experimental approach, we broke down the application based on business value and the business prioritized for us. And we did multiple dry runs before we did the actual run. And when we did the actual run, it went way smoother, because when we did the dry run, we found out what pockets of outages we'll experience, and we were ready. We still experience outages, but everybody were really calm, and they were able to plan for it, right? Someone said they'd been used to it. Yes?
So my question would be is, to what extent did the IT people contribute to the need for design change? And I'm thinking about that front end. I work a totally different business.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest problems we have is we have lots of changes from our customers.
Yes.
And we've been working on trying to reduce the number of questions. What is our responsibility as a service provider to get them to think it through more completely before we start working? What about in IT? Will that work in IT also?
It should work in, I mean, if I understand your question correctly, are you asking, like, if we educate the IT to be a good service provider and make them understand the business model, they would be more equipped? Is that your question?
I guess I'm going further than that.
Yes, I mean, I think it's possible, but the first thing is for them to understand that organization works as a system, right? It's not just them and their silo and figuring out what software they come up with. Whatever they come up with, they're actually impacting the end customers, and that is their whole purpose. I think most of the time, you're so siloed like any other business function that you have, you completely forget that you're actually servicing the customer, and you're assuming that your business partner is your real customer, who they are not. Your business partner is just a liaison between the actual end customer, the frontline end customer, and you as an IT person. I think it's possible. It's just that because IT people are knowledge workers and they're really smart. So they get this. They believe in logic. 2 minutes?
No, we're done.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, that's fine. Thank
You
you.
follow up. So thank you, Poorani.